Have you ever wondered what would happen if the legends of Christmas weren't exactly what we've been told? What if Santa Claus wasn't that jovial and kind figure we imagine, but something much darker and more sinister? Imagine that, instead of delivering presents, an alternative Santa has a much more macabre mission, collecting the souls of abandoned or mistreated children, taking them away in his sleigh on Christmas Eve. It sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? But it's a nightmare that lurks in the shadows of forgotten traditions. And if you ever find yourself alone on Christmas Eve, under the full moon, you may discover that there's something much worse than carols and gifts. Something that waits in the dark, biding its time to take what matters most: innocence. The legend I'm about to tell you today features a very different Santa Claus than the one you might imagine. His name is Nicholas Black, a being whose story is not known to the common folk, but who has existed in the dark corners of ancient traditions since time immemorial. While the rest of the world celebrates Christmas with bright lights, parties, and hope, he hides in the darkest recesses of the night. Nicholas Black doesn't bring joy or happiness. His job is much darker: to collect the souls of forgotten children, those who were never loved, those who suffered abandonment or abuse. Unlike the traditional Santa Claus who slides down chimneys to leave gifts, Nicholas Black travels in his flying sleigh. But this sleigh isn't filled with toys. It's filled with souls. Lost souls, trapped between life and death, now to be transported to a place from which they'll never return. But why does he do this? What drives him to roam the saddest and darkest houses on Christmas night? The answer lies in ancient times, when the holidays were not just a moment of joy, but also a reminder that life and death are intertwined. In its origins, Nicholas Black was created by those who feared what would become of children who were not cared for, those who died unloved. The ancients believed that these souls needed to be rescued, but not by an angel, by something much darker, something that could accompany them to their final resting place without leaving a trace. And so, the Sleigh of the Forgotten was born, emerging from a dark pact that granted Nicholas Black powers beyond human understanding. Every Christmas, in the coldest hours of the night, he roams the world, searching for children who, for one reason or another, have never been loved or cared for. And his sleigh, pulled by creatures that can only be described as shadows with fiery eyes, has a purpose far beyond simply collecting souls. It takes the children to a realm that cannot be seen with human eyes, a place where time doesn't pass and where darkness never lifts. It's a place where Christmas never ends, but neither does the suffering. The sleigh, with its weight of lost souls, travels through the long hours of the night, gliding silently through the air until it reaches the deepest darkness, where the souls of the children are dragged and never seen again. But the most disturbing part of all is how the victims are chosen. It's not just about those who have had difficult lives. It's not just a matter of poverty or sadness. Nicholas Black seeks something else: complete abandonment. The children who have been utterly forgotten by love, those who suffered in silence, those who were mistreated in the darkest corners of a home. These are the ones the shadow of his sleigh hunts. It's said that at the moment a child is completely stripped of their humanity, abandoned to their fate in the cold indifference of the world, Nicholas Black appears, and there is no escape. Someone, or something, comes to take them. Terrifying testimonies recount the stories of those who have witnessed this horrifying event. Even if they are not taken by the sleigh, they are forever marked. The presence of Nicholas Black is so powerful that it leaves a scar on the soul of anyone who experiences it. Despair overtakes the minds of people when they realize that a being like him could exist. In his gaze, there is no hope, only emptiness, an emptiness that consumes the children and anyone who crosses his path. It is said that the cold surrounding his sleigh is so intense that it makes people feel the breath of death on their necks, as if they are seeing their own future, one they cannot escape. One chilling account tells the story of a little girl named Sophie. Sophie lived in a home where love was a forgotten word, where screams and shadows were more frequent than hugs and smiles. Despite her efforts to get her parents' attention, Sophie never received the warmth she so desperately needed. There was no Christmas for her, no lights, no gifts. Her only solace was the window, where, on the darkest nights, she could see the lights of the neighboring houses, full of joy and laughter. But that Christmas Eve was different. That night, as Sophie gazed out the window, something made her turn around. A shadow rose in the corner of her room, and it was then that she saw something that paralyzed her with terror. A sleigh, dark and silent, floating in the air. A sleigh that did not belong to any known world, and with it, a hooded figure who could only be described as Santa Claus himself, but not the one the others knew. This Santa did not smile. His face was hidden, but Sophie could feel his eyes on her, watching her, evaluating her. When the girl tried to scream, the shadow was already over her. She felt the coldest chill she had ever experienced, as if death itself were touching her. The shadow came closer slowly, and in that moment, Sophie understood the worst. There was no escape. The sleigh stopped in front of her window, and the figure extended a hand as cold as ice. "Come with us," it whispered so softly that it was almost inaudible, but the girl knew she couldn't refuse. Sophie was taken by the shadow, and in the blink of an eye, the sleigh vanished into the night, taking her to the place where the forgotten go to rest for all eternity. From that day forward, Sophie's story became a local legend, and although the years passed, the memories of her disappearance never faded. Every Christmas, the people of the town look to the sky with fear, wondering if the dark sleigh figure will return for those children who, like Sophie, were trapped in the cold indifference of a world that forgot them. And you, do you think Nicholas Black is just a legend? Perhaps the next time you look out the window on Christmas Eve, you should think twice before gazing up at the sky. Because if the sleigh of the forgotten appears, it may already be too late to escape. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and leave a comment. Would you dare to share it? Subscribe for more dark and terrifying tales. See you in the next video.